Hi Navya. Hello everyone else. Welcome to the Dust of Your Kitabs book club meeting. I'm very excited. Today we are discussing Anuja Chauhan's Club You to Death. Before we start, let me just give a major disclaimer that everyone, because it's actually I think everyone's read this, but because this is going to be on YouTube, if you're going to be mentioning any spoilers while you're talking about the book, just make sure you uh, are at least giving that disclaimer at the beginning, because there might just be people who might not have read the book or might not have read the entire book. That being said, I'm supremely pumped because I'm a huge Anuja Chauhan fan, and I have met her a couple of times. I've spoken to her on my podcast, and I still am a huge fan. She is by far one of the most cool writers, and I literally mean that word when I say that, because I think she's the one who popularized this way of writing wherein you talk a lot more about. And I think she personally herself picked it up a lot from Vikram Seth, who had a lot more nuance and sophistication to how he wrote, but also had a very Indianized way of communicating with people. And that's something that Anuja's work stands out for, the way she incorporates your usual daily phrases. In fact, for that matter, I think I was reading one of the reviews of this book where you know, she while describing Anuja Chauhan's writing style, the reviewer wrote about how Anuja Chauhan's characters are not read, they're heard. Because, every reader, while they're reading her work, can actually hear the voices of the characters because they're so familiar and so from around you. Anyway, Club You to Death is her first murder mystery. She is generally known for writing romance novels, which almost all of us love. But this was her first try at a murder mystery. And so I have some mixed feelings about the book because I am a huge Anuja Chauhan romance fan. I wasn't particularly happy about the kind of romance that came out in the book, and I had some issues with that. But I nevertheless really liked the book because it was doing exactly what Anuja's work does. It's very hard hitting in a very subtle way. You won't realize what it's talking about till you've digested a lot of it. For example, the book often talks about caste in a very subtle way, which most of us won't pick up on, which is for me is a great thing that she's pointing out. She points out, she takes on the elite, she points out how hypocritical they are, and at the same time makes it a very funny proposition, which becomes very interesting. As for the plot, I was quite sold on it. I mean, and I failed to predict the murderer, if that's something that counts. But yeah, I'm not a huge mystery or for that matter a murder mystery person, so I suck at this. But yeah, I think that's most of it from me. I think I'll pitch in later, but I do have something for you guys to talk about. I would, if you've read anything by Anuja Chauhan earlier, please try and draw a parallel when you're talking about it. I would really, I mean, that's just for me. I would love to hear what you guys think about it. Navya, would you like to pitch in before
Yeah.
we have people?
So I comparing it to, the other book that I really loved was hers was those pricey Thakur girls, and like you said, I think the romance in that was a lot better crafted and written than the one in this book. But I'm a big murder mystery fan actually, and that's why I even picked up this book in the first place, and I've managed to read it in like 2 or 3 days because I was quite hooked onto it. I thought her references were really interesting. I thought the way she wrote it was also there was a lot of humor which isn't present in murder mystery or kind of thriller books, and I enjoyed that a lot. And yeah, similar to you, I had absolutely no idea who the murderer would be. I actually had completely different guesses while reading the entire book until I got to the end, and I was kind of completely taken aback. And that's something different because usually when I have read other murder mysteries, I do have some kind of indication as to who it could be. But in this particular book, I honestly had no idea right up until it was revealed. So I thought that was a really exciting part of the book. And I just think that something that she did really well was there were a lot of characters in this book. There were like a huge kind of number of characters, and each character had its own narrative, its own story, and I think the way she kind of managed to piece it all together was really good, because usually when you're reading a book that has so many characters, you can get a bit lost and confused in following each and every story. But I that didn't really happen here, and I was kind of pretty much following um everything that was happening, even though there was a pretty big kind of list of characters.
Right.
But I really enjoyed this book, and I'm actually excited to hear what everybody else thought about it. So if anybody wants to kind of share what they thought, uh, let me know. You guys
Yeah.
can just unmute yourselves and go ahead.
Right. Right. You could just raise your hands and we'll unmute you so you can start talking. Because the one of the reasons why we didn't go ahead with like a general form of sending out questions or themes for this is because it was such a fun book and there's so much that can be spoken about. We figured it'd be very restricting, and that's what we saw in the past meetings. So we figured we'll just open the floor to everyone who wants to talk. So yep, anyone who wishes to talk, can you just raise your hand and we can recognize you to let you talk. Okay, we have someone. Yeah, Iti, you're recognized first, followed by Nimra.
Hello, hi
Hi.
everyone.
Hello.
First of all, it was very engaging book, and like Navya, I just finished the book in 2 to 3 days because I was like, who's the killer? Who's the killer? And everything that Siddharth and Navya said, and additionally, I just loved the references which were to the days we live in currently. I mean, all those subtle Bollywood and politics remarks, I thoroughly enjoyed them, and I was just constantly laughing while reading this, which I found very different in terms of murder mystery because I love murder mystery books, and this was just icing on that cake. Like that humor was the best part of this book, in my opinion. In terms of characters, I think my favorite was Cookie Auntie because she was I mean, she was just representing entire Delhi auntie gang like in the best way possible. She was sweet in her own ways, intimidating in her own ways. Of course, gossip was the key to her entire character, but I just thoroughly enjoyed how Anuja added those daily bits to all those characters. Like she didn't shy away from making them any less than what they could have been. So I just thoroughly enjoyed all those characters coming up, and my favorite thing was references to the present world. Yeah, I just love that part. Thank you.
Iti, have you read anything by Anuja Chauhan before this? Like, just
Actually,
curious.
no, Siddharth. This is my first book,
Uh,
first Anuja Chauhan book, and I am like a fan now. So I have already ordered those pricey Thakur girls, and the
right.
next, like, once I finish that, I'll be moving on to another story by Anuja Chauhan. So like, I'm like properly like gone into her zone, and I'll very soon be finishing all her books.
Yeah, I'm sure you love it because like the reason I asked was because you spoke about how you love the particular thing that you like was how it referenced a lot of things that are happening in your life, and like Bollywood and politics, and that's just quintessential Anuja. Like if you pick up any of her books, she's bang on those topics,
Exactly.
right?
I'm very excited to pick up other books by her because I don't know why I haven't read any of her books before. I just don't know. It's a shame. But now, better late than never. So, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we have Nimra next, followed by Mohini. Uh,
Hi. So I honestly loved the book so much. I thought it was written amazingly. It was a very easy read as well. And I loved how the book didn't focus on only one character. It was focusing on more like a lot of characters at once. And you didn't really realize who the murderer could be until the very end because all characters have reasons to like basically kill the person. So yeah.
hmm. Right, and that I think that's something that a couple of even Navya pointed that out. That how there are a bunch of characters out there, and that generally is something that pulls a book down because people get really lost. And in fact, I recommended this book to someone recently called The Lives of Others, which has like I think 50 or 55 people like characters in it, and that poor person just really got lost. And it's a very serious book. But I think Anuja's this style of writing is so, for a lack of better word, chill. I guess it just flows so easily. I think everyone can just really join in. But okay, so I think we had Mohini recognized next, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, right.
right.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi, everybody. I'm first of all really sorry because of the noise. I'm actually coming back from a work meeting and I'm in auto and I'm really sorry, but I did not want to miss the meeting. So yeah, so actually, I would first like to thank you guys for recommending this book, because I'm a sucker for suspense novels and murder mysteries in particular. But I had not discovered, like many of us, I wasn't aware about this author, and like you all also mentioned that how relevant it is. What I really liked about this suspense thriller was the fact that it is not just relevant to our times. It just feels like, oh, it must be really happening somewhere in Delhi. Maybe I just read about this in the news last week, and now I'm just reading the entire thing and who was the killer and everything. And the satire, so every character has been so carefully written, and the backstories, and each and every dialogue that ties back to everything that follows up in the story, and how it just brings a smile. It's a satire, but also it brings a smile to your face. And also for the fact that the language is so simple, like someone, I think Navya mentioned it, that she could also finish it in just a couple of days, and same happened with me. Even with my work, I could easily finish it, and the reason being that the language was so simple, and like really humorous and sarcastic and satire, and it was just a complete interesting novel, and I can't wait to read more by the same author. Yeah.
Thank you, Moini, first of all, for joining in despite being traveling. That's really sweet of you. Second, I'll just give you a fair warning. Anuja Chauhan does not, in general, write murder mystery. This was the only murder mystery she's written till now. The rest of it, it's generally romance. So if that's something that'll bother you, you shouldn't. Before we have the other people, I think Iti has a really nice note in the chat box, which I really stand by. It seems weird that everyone's video is off. Would love to see your lovely faces. So would I. Obviously, no pressure. This goes up on YouTube, so you might not want to do that. But yeah, it'll be great to see some of you while you talk. We have Mitali next, if I'm pronouncing it right, followed by Ishani, and then Jayashri, then Priya, and then Rajni. Let's go.
Hi everyone. So I absolutely enjoyed the book. Very easy, very quick read. Same, I like everyone else. I think I pretty much finished it, wrapped it up in like 2 days. I have been a huge fan of her because I've read those Pricey Thakur Girls like a million times. I'm a big romance buff, so I loved that book. The romance was brilliant. Kept kept you hooked in, which was a slight disappointment in this one because you keep I think you keep rooting for these two characters from the very beginning in some way or the other, and the parallel storylines of both the romances, you're not sure who to because they're both quite enduring. I think both Akash's girlfriend's storyline and Bambi's. I think that's what her name was. Yeah. So I think it sort of questions your moral compass because you're also not sure if you want Bambi and his romance to continue or reignite almost. But then he's always referencing his girlfriend and how he feels happy in that situation now. So the romance was interesting in this one, but not as engaging as I guess those Spicy Thakur Girls. That's one important thing that I wanted to talk about, and the other is that I'm a huge mystery thriller lover. Um, I really liked the mystery, but I did feel that by the end of it, it was slightly forced. I feel like certain characters and their endings were slightly forced, especially I think Urvashi's entire angle with Rax. I thought it was completely, it was out of the blue and just unconvincing, I think. All of the other endings were still convincing enough. But I feel like certain characters, especially Urvashi's, they were just, yeah, slightly unconvincing endings. But overall, I think it was a very enjoyable read, definitely.
Thank you, Mitali. For that matter, I think so. I think I might get a lot of hate for this because I had very odd views on this particular romance. I absolutely love Anuja's romantic style. I've actually rooted for every story she's written, apart from this one, because I think I don't know, is it because of the time I read it at? Like I was way younger in life, I guess, when I was reading the earlier ones, and now post college, post work life, you kind of start thinking of romance in a very different way. But I just personally thought that, and I discussed this a lot with my best friend, who's also a huge Anuja Chauhan fan. We spoke about how, okay, so you have two main relationships that you could be rooting for, right? You have Bambi and Kashi, and you have Kashi and his girlfriend. Neither of which seemed like really fulfilling ones to me, because I just kind of thought from whatever was being written, his equation with BT seemed something like really toxic for each other and not just one way, right? I think they were really bad for each other. So I kind of found myself, that logical part of me not really rooting for them. And at the same time, I just did not know enough about Akash's girlfriend to kind of start rooting for him with her, right? And she just felt like an accessory for the book, like, oh, ekdam end mein aake use yaad aata hai. And so I think that was something I was disappointed about, that I missed reading that, you know, like Anuja writes so much about, it makes your heart sore and gives you goosebumps just reading it about falling in love and how you're feeling about the other person. That kind of feeling I didn't really take away, but because it was a murder mystery, I really didn't hold too much against it. Anyway, I won't take up more time. Ishani, followed by Jayashree, followed by Priya, followed by Rajni. Let's go.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, hi. So I honestly didn't feel like this was a murder mystery, but like a more like a comedy kind of a book. Like, I don't know. It was like really interesting, and I finished it in like a day. And I hadn't read books for like a long time because I had like freaking exams all the time. So it was like a really, really good read. And what I really liked is about the relation between ACP Bhavani thing and Padam Kumar. It was like really funny, and it just reminded me of like CID for some reason, like a Bill part. And I was like, wow, it's also there because the way he's always like, you know what, you just gotta focus on your career, not about the way of person you're gonna marry. And you know, everywhere he like keeps on mentioning, oh, you know what, I met this girl today, and she's this fair person. So Anuja Chauhan also brings up these like a little issues that we all face about like marriage and all. So that was like really interesting in a subtle way. And then I really like, so I am from Delhi and I go to these clubs and I could like totally relate to the entire fact that that happened. It was like reliving my own life because I remember when you go there and like Cookie Auntie, like she judges people so much, and I was like, oh my god, this is like living my own episode because I would just like show up there wearing like like a loose shirt and everything, and everyone's gonna be like, oh no. So we see a person not from South Delhi entering, let's just bash her up. So that was like really interesting to see. Then what else? Yeah, and like Navya mentioned, like you could hear the voices of the character, which is so true because I lived there. So I was like, oh, this I'm not gonna name the person because then they're gonna sue me, and I have no money to you know defend myself there. But then yeah, it was so interesting, and I kept on mentioning this to my mom, and my mom was like, "Can we just post a picture of it?" I'm like, "That is literally what the book says. You can't just like post pictures about people because you saw them in like a designer wear in somewhere and everything." So it was like really interesting. And then the twist, I kind of expected Bambi to do it because she was like really fishy from start. And as being a law student, I was like, okay, wait, let me just analyze everyone. Let's just write everyone down, like the good points. And I knew for some reason Bambi was like really smart. Like she is quite smart. Like why would she, as a person who has like a literally bungalow right next to her place, pick up gardening? Like, why would a person from South Delhi in their right mind pick up gardening? No offense, but I've never seen that happen until quarantine happened. Everyone became a plant person. Before that, I've never known a person to be a plant person before, like never ever. I don't know, I'm like talking a lot, but I really like the book. And the best part about it is Mr. Mehra uncle, and I'm not kidding, there's an uncle who's like exactly like him, and he's always gonna talk about all these like medals and all in the club also about. And then I'm just gonna be like, Uncle, that happened like a long time ago. Everything is moved on. There are more medals to talk about. He's going like, no. That's not important. Listen to me. So, and then somehow he turns his, he becomes like deaf whenever you talk about something else. And then he's like, yeah, not interesting, not interesting. So yeah, it was like a really good read. I really enjoyed it because it just reminded me of my life, especially when Akash and Bambi were like playing from like young, so they became like really good friends, right? They went to the same school, they went to tennis coaching. That my mom did the same thing, and I hated her for that because I was like, why do I have to meet the same person every day in my entire life? Like I see him in school, why do I have to see him at the club as well? What is the point of this? But yeah, I really liked it, and this was like my first read by Anuja Chauhan. So thank you for recommending this book. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm absolutely loving the energy Ishani brought to this discussion, because I think that is exactly what all Anuja Chauhan fans are like, and dropping those truth bombs that people don't take up gardening. So anyone who's taking up gardening, please be aware around the people over there. But yeah, I get this energy. This is exactly what happens when you read Anuja Chauhan. You like, this is a character from my life, and there's something Anuja talks a lot about. If you like pick up any of her interviews, or ever like text her about it on Insta or something, she takes up things from around her, right? And tries and incorporate it into the book. And that is something that actually reflects very well. And as I think, I mean, if you could look at a chat box or what everyone else is saying, all of us have like had experiences where we've met people very similar to the characters that they're talking about, that are there in the book. Okay. I'll have Jayashree next, followed by Priya, Rajni, and then Muskan.
Hi, everybody. Uh, so I have been, picking up some difficult books to read, and it was very difficult for me to continue. So this book came as a breather. So all those books are now kept aside, and I just picked up this one, and it was a very, very easy book to read, very fast moving. So yes, it was like a breather to me, and I enjoyed it. So my first Anuja Chauhan as well. I like the local element of the book. It's like, I see that it is for maybe the Indian audience, where we can relate a lot with the characters, with the language, with the mannerisms, with the idiosyncrasies of the characters. So that was interesting. When you guys are talking about the love affair in the book and all, for me, I don't think there's anything in that. So if you ask me, at the end of the book, it doesn't give a happy ending of any of the characters in terms of their love life. It's like, I feel ठीक है, अभी ठीक है, maybe they will meet somebody else, and something else will go on in their lives. So it's not bringing that closure at all in terms of the main characters here. Uh, but the older ones, the relationship between couples, maybe Inspector Bhavani or the other characters, I think those are well etched in terms of with living with a person for so long, there comes some kind of an understanding, a realization about your partner and all, whatever the world says and however the character is etched, and that was brought about in the book. So yeah, I enjoyed. It was very real life, looked real life. I don't know about Delhi society, but yes, sounds similar to what our idea is. So yes, thanks for the recommendation.
It's very interesting that you pointed this out. Like, that if we, a lot of us tend to chase after like heavy literature and like go after it because it's very enriching to read. But this is something I particularly started picking up after I started reading Anuja Chauhan. That and obviously I realized a lot of it as I grew up. Like, if you take up a book, it's not really a commentary on caste directly, but she obviously talks a lot about it when she's writing through her characters, or class for that matter, about how people are looking at discrimination, or how people are regarding the new age movement that goes about with various things, or something like how you look. The way the characters talk about it is, this is something, just going back to my law school days. I remember when the judgment which decriminalized Section 377 came in, and that we had this huge debate in class about how, whether simply having it decriminalized is enough, or whether there needs to be a social change, because people would always keep subtly keep passing comments or things, which is what is often reflected in society, and something that she talks about in the book as well, not directly but obviously through her characters. So it's actually, I personally always found Anuja Chauhan's work to be the best example of how fiction is a reflection of what society is, because generally high fiction, or something like what maybe your Arundhati Roy would be writing, is great. It's absolutely wonderful, really well written, but it's it's very complex. But at the same time, Anuja Chauhan's work is supremely simple, but at the same time reflecting exactly what the other book is. So yeah, I think, sorry, that's
Yeah,
my
I like to pitch in
rant on
as
this.
well.
Yeah,
See, sometimes, a lot of this knowledge or ideas are given through the medium of fiction. So it's not just a story, it's not just, something or real life like, but then yes, it tells us a lot about, and there's a lot of depth also, which is just passed on through the medium of fiction. So that is very appealing to me.
right. Thank you, Jashi. We have Priya next, followed by Rajni and then Muskan.
Hey, hello everyone. So I wanted to particularly talk about Bambi. So, like someone earlier, so I guess Mitali had said that it questions your moral compass, right? Whether Bambi is right, wrong. But what I thought of Bambi was like she never questions. She doesn't have the filter like what's right, what's wrong, what's black and white. She doesn't have that filter. She just accepts or perceives things as they are, and reacts the way she thinks she should, as naturally, I guess. So yeah, which and she keeps getting in trouble. She's really bad with choices, I guess. And there was a line that said, Kashi said that, why can't people just have one personality, right? And then Bhavani replies, ki only privileged can afford to have one personality. But like, Bambi was privileged, but she didn't have one personality, of course. Like, she seemed so silly and funny and warm, and that, but she did such she executed those crimes so smartly, like no one ever guessed. So like that was crazy. Like everyone else, even I couldn't recognize the murderer until last. So yeah, that's it. And Anuja's amazing. I can't wait to read her other works. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Priya. And I think I know. So I thought I would be like the only one here, but clearly this is turning out to be wrong. That I was the only one who couldn't get it. Most people couldn't, but it's very strange because most other people have been like, at least online, if you read reviews or something, like the world's largely divided. There's a good number of people who somehow claim that they could predict it was Bambi who was doing the murders, but yeah, I couldn't really place that. I mean, I couldn't really see any major clues which were leading there, but that's probably just me not having read a lot of murder mysteries or not having followed a lot of crime documentaries or whatever, which is a thing apparently. Next we have Rajni and then Muskan.
Hi everyone. Am I audible? I'm also in transit. I didn't want to miss this, so I thought I'll just jump in. So guys, this book was okay. I think it was intelligent in certain ways because it had a lot of observational comedy, which I felt was so smart on the part of the author. As to there were certain racist remarks, there were so many classist remarks that while reading you get pissed off that why are people like this, and then you go back and you're like, yeah, this uncle is like that, oh yeah, this auntie is like that, we know people like that. And even though it's so inappropriate, but it's like showing a mirror to the society that hey, this is how we are. And certain aspects of the book, I don't have the book handy, but I remember when they I think two, a cookie and one more aunties were discussing about how there's a certain class of people who are just above the maids, and if we speak to them a little bit nicely, they feel we are infatuated by them. This kind of conversation it's so hilarious, but I'm sure people do have such kind of viewpoints, and I think it was great to read. And also, one more thing apart from observational comedy, I love the character of ACP Bhavani. And guys, I don't know if you can hear me.
Is it just me or did we lose Rajni's voice?
No, I think her voice is cracking a little bit.
Yeah. I'll just drop a message to her. Till then, I think it's Muskan who's next.
you guys read, but this book is
Okay.
based.
Okay. Okay. Rajni's muted. Great. Muskan, you can go ahead. I'll just text Rajni.
Hi. Uh, I have like a lot of mixed feelings about this book. I've read those slightly thoughtful words, and of course, I loved it more because it's more romance centric. Even though I love murder mysteries, I don't look at this book like a murder mystery. For me, it was like a khichdi that I don't particularly like because I think um, there were parts where comedy shines brightly. There were parts where it was the mystery part thoda bahut, and then the romance was also there. So everything was just overlapping, and the essence of like one particular thing wasn't coming out as well. I completely agree with Siddharth when he talks about how Bambi's relationship with Kashi is toxic because even I thought so. I definitely think that they aren't well suited for each other. And to think of Kashi's girlfriend, of course, she wasn't too much in the book to say whether their relationship is something that one can root for. I think ACP Bhavani reminds me of like a very grandfatherly figure because even like with the way he's written and the way he talks, especially the nod, it's not. And when my Nanu, he talks in English, his nod comes as nod. So like for me, it was completely my Nana's image in my head when I was reading ACP Bhavani's part. And I think Anuja writes Delhi like nobody else can. I mean, it's as Delhi can get. And Cookie Auntie reminded me of ZNMD ki Cookie Auntie for some reason. And I could think of a lot of Cookie Aunties in my life. And I suddenly had this sensation that, probably aage jaakar I might turn into a Cookie Auntie because I am a gossip queen, okay? And I think I might turn into that Delhi Cookie Auntie, but like not in a negative sense, in a more woke sense. I don't know if I'm making sense or not. Also, I had an inkling that it was Bambi who did the murder. And then, of course, the impulse was me to turn pages to check who it was, and I ruined the book for myself. So, yeah, that's about it from me.
Okay, so many things. First of all, you're the first person who we've come across on the club at least, who's at least had an inkling. So maybe you want to talk about why you thought it was this thing. I'm very curious about that.
Because
What
I
made you?
think more than other characters, Bambi was everywhere, and he
Huh.
was the most curious about what was going on. Pashito was pulled into investigating, but Bambi was the one who was voluntarily everywhere. So it was kind of giveaway.
Huh, interesting. Like, so for me, I remember thinking I forgot the character's name, the young guy who was obsessed with Bambi, who would, and who would just like leaving notes or this thing. So I thought maybe he had like a much bigger role in how the murders and shit happened.
ना देख लिया मैंने कि वो मुझे पता था कि वो ट्रिक तो Bambi खुद ही लिख रही होगी.
It could be a Chekhov's gun for all you know, like something this thing. But yeah, that was what it turned out to be. I think Mitali wants to go again, so you can.
Yeah, no, so I also had an inkling about her while I was reading, and I think it sort of got confirmed when they discovered the body and the husband came back. Because I think in my head I was sort of ticking off names of which, if it was not Ganga's husband, I'm forgetting his name. I think it was something Kumar. I'm forgetting his name. But I was thinking that if it was not the husband, then who could the dead body be of? And simultaneously, they were talking about how he went to Calcutta, and the father never really recognized his son's body, and he did it on a whim. Like pretty much did it on an instinct. So that's when it sort of hit me that there might be a slight chance that it could be her fiance, and but I was still not being able to connect how and why would. I mean, obviously there was no reason for it in my head. It was slightly just an inkling, which turned out to be right. For me, that confusion of the murder, the body which they excavated was the plug.
So again, something that I was again a bit, I don't know, not really happy with was how. So how in the end, like when Bambi confesses and she starts talking about all the things that happened in the past. What I felt was there was a lot of stuff that happened in those few pages, and I know it just didn't really tie up that well for me. Like I was particularly not very sold on like how, I mean, I could see why, like in retrospect, that how Mummy would have done it, but it just seemed like it kind of seemed slightly forced. I don't know. It's just my takeaway. I might be really the only one who might have had that. It just seemed that it's kind of structured too, or like the additional bits were just forced in towards the end to kind of make it seem that Bambi did it. I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me here
Somehow,
with it.
for me, somehow during this entire book, I felt like the murder mystery part was a little forced. I mean, I don't think Anuja should write more murder mysteries.
Oh, that's
I
okay. I mean,
agree.
yeah,
I agree.
it just seems very. I don't know. I'm not a huge murder mystery person, so I can't really comment on whether it was a good murder mystery or a bad one. It's just like I'm just telling you my opinion as like someone who was reading. I just kind of not really sold on it. The other thing that I wasn't very particularly happy about was, I mean, as much as Anuja's work is really great for capturing voices at this, it actually made me think a lot more about what I almost always end up debating is whether art form or like any kind of work. Okay, wait, I'm sorry, I have a message. Nimisha wants to talk, so I'll just let her, I'll just recognize her. I can keep talking for ages otherwise. Nimisha, you can talk now.
Uh,
I've just
I
unmuted
think
you.
you can finish your thought, then I'll continue.
Oh no. So I was just the weird bit that I felt was it's something I always think about when I'm reading any book or like when I'm looking at any art form or cinema for that matter, is whether it should be simply describing society as it is or like describing situations as it is, or should it be something that that forces you to delve a lot more into how you're feeling or thinking, and that's something I felt was lacking in this particular work. So I wasn't particularly expecting it from any of Anuja's older works because it's generally a lot more to do with romance and they're very simplistic romantic stories, and I guess I should do this exercise with those books as well. But herein I thought that maybe there would be, again, that's just something I think a personal preference. I kind of was debating whether if she has such great insight into how society is structured and how it functions, and has such a great grasp over how she narrates this, maybe she could have tried and made us look a lot more inward or think about these things that she wrote about. But yeah, anyway, that's just like something I was randomly thinking of. But Nimisha, please take the floor.
Hi, thank you. So firstly, I also had an inkling that Bambi was the murderer. I got it
Amazing.
when I had an inkling, but it wasn't a sure thing. But I got it when we get to see when we get to the part where we get to see the video of this guy, the guy who got murdered. He's questioning the gardener. He's making him drunk, and then like he keeps on repeating these sentences that equal part trust and equal part friendship or love, something like that. And like in the starting they build it up that Kashi and Bambi both had a good relationship with the gardener and they were very friendly with it. So and when when you're reading the book and eventually you know that Mr. Mehra didn't do it, his wife didn't do it, and a lot of people are ruled out, then I'm like, you keep on going back to equal part trust and equal part friendship, and that's how like I got an inkling that it might be Bamboo because that's the only one. Like both of these people were close to the gardener, and when he was talking to the guy who was murdered, like that's how he was referring to them. So that's how I got it. And the Anshu part also again, like when because the body that was found was like 3 years ago, and then if you see the timeline of whatever we are presented with and what happened 3 years ago, the engagement happened 3 years ago, and Anshu disappeared 3 years ago. So thoda relation I also got, but of course, like there was a lot of it. Secondly, I would agree with what you were saying that there was a lot of information pushed together in the almost like last half of the book. A lot of information pushed together and seemed a bit forced that they want to end it and wrap it up, like how the whole Bambi and Kashi story was going on. Uh, and when he finds out that she is the one who committed the murder, she just writes him a letter and that's it. That's over for them. There's no conversation that happens. Like he doesn't say anything. He goes back to being with Kuhu. So I think it was a bit abrupt. Like that's how I felt. It could have been done better. Uh, and also like this book is very thirdly I would say that this book is very entertaining to read. Like I wasn't expecting, I started it was a bit like I didn't initially it's a bit boring too, it doesn't add up much. But like when you start reading it, going through like, okay, they're interrogating more people, what's happening, so it becomes like a whodunit mystery. And I would say it's like Knives Out set in South Delhi. So it was funny that way. You don't expect a lot of like big Sherlock Holmes revelations there, but it's funny because of the characters and whatever is happening. So that's how I saw it, and I really like Bhavani Singh because like now whatever characters you see, all the characters who are based on army or police personal characters, what happens is they are more aggressive or they are always shouting and everything. So Bhavani Singh stands out in that. Like she made a character who is cool and composed, who is also as intelligent and as capable of solving crimes as anyone who is as hot-headed. So I like that particular characteristic of Bhavani Singh. So yeah.
Noted. Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Nimisha. Because and something that you pointed out, like the bit about the romance, I think we've spoken about this earlier. And just the only reason I don't really hold it much against Tanuja is because, well, she said she's writing a murder mystery and not a romance novel. So, I mean, as much as we've come to expect romance novels from her and love it, but as I mean, as much as I really would want to read romance in a book, I was quite fine with it not resolving or heading anywhere. It's just that I wasn't very particularly taken in by the relationship that was spoken about in the book. Right. Yeah, I think Muskan, you have your hand raised. Do you want to say something?
Yeah. EP, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She raised this question that, Bambi probably she wouldn't have been that suspected. And I completely agree with her because the idea of Bambi as a character is with relation to Kashi. Like almost everywhere where Bambi as a character comes out is in relation to Kashi, and therefore, given that Anuja is known for her romance writing, of course, as a reader who already reads Anuja's work, your entire concentration is on the romance track with respect to Kashi and Bambi, and therefore you don't suspect her of murder. So, like, I totally get why Anuja would go for Bambi as a murderer because she wouldn't be the most suspected one.
That's quite an interesting look at it, to be honest. And yeah, I think Nimra just pointed out in the chat that honestly, I feel like Kashi is one of those people who needs someone to be happy, and that is true. I mean, that does come out, but I think also Kashi's character is very quintessential. Like, I don't know. I think every male, unfortunately, has to go through that, and it's just sad that how he looks at things. Because I was very disappointed in Kashi because I'm from law school, so I thought he would have done much better as a human being. But that's just me expecting a lot from people. But I mean, I felt that he was not being righteous to anyone. Like, I think he was being very. I mean, it's emotional cheating after a point in time if he was having all of this with Bambi, and at the same time, he was not really like he had this weird toxic thing. He knew how wrong it was, and he was still in it. It just kind of made me not very happy with Kashi's personal choices. Loved him as a character, but not a huge fan of him as a human being.
But then
It
he
is
became extremely real because of that, right? Because that is how people are, and that's what made him very human.
of course, I get that, and the thing is, so that's an always like constant struggle, right? Like, I mean, that's and exactly going back to the question that I was asking. Either you look at society as how it is and let it be that it's great that the works that's coming out there, but or should the point of art or a book for that matter, especially particularly what is an author's responsibility when they're writing a work? Do you think it goes on to include something as basic as pointing out the flaws in their own characters or making them more introspective about what's going on? And I don't think Anuja did that here. Maybe for a few characters, but for a lot of them, it's just pointing out how people are, right? And yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not saying that makes a writer good or bad or their writing or anything. It's just a very raw thought about how art should generally be. Iti, you can speak now. I think you had to raise your hand. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So first of all, continuing with that point of Kashi's character, so I get very involved in any book that I'm reading. So when I was reading my book, I was constantly, dropping pointers to my friend, and then my friend and I, we had a discussion on, why is Kashi doing what he's doing, and that led on to why are men like this and all of that. So yes, that part of his character was quite questionable and should be. But then I felt that this book even though it was like, a murder mystery, it was quite masala book, like, just the quintessential Bollywood masala movie where this character has to be like this because, and just like, so I felt that a lot of those things came from that masala factor, that now that, yeah, there are just two young people, so they have to sort of be in confused state of mind and be like, oh, is taraf jaun ki us taraf jaun, and all of that. So I just felt like that was very Bollywood touch of to this book, and the same goes with all the gossips that were happening. But then I feel that's because of the entire Delhi portrayal of things. Like, I could imagine this happening to someone real, like, and then their friends sitting and thinking, "Oh, why is this happening? What's wrong with this guy?" and all of that. So yeah, I really felt that it was quite a 10 on 10 masala book, to be very honest.
I think I completely agree, and I think that's one thing I was very like strangely taken aback by, because I don't know how many of you watched the Zoya Factor. It's out on Netflix also now. Not that I'm recommending the movie. Anuja herself doesn't, and so that's the thing. I think almost all of Anuja's books read like these masala books, and like if you love Bollywood, you would genuinely enjoy reading her work and then seeing them adapted. And I was very pumped. I remember like this happening when the Zoya Factor came out. It was her first book, and then and she was involved with the making of the movie. And I don't know why. Like there's just like there were a bunch of my friends, a couple of them really close, who love Anuja Chauhan's heart, and they just like, please, if you value your soul and you value Anuja as a person, please don't watch the movie. It'll ruin your life. And like Anuja did, like I did a podcast with her where she spoke a lot about this, like why it didn't turn out to be as good as the book. But yeah, I'm just like, so ever since then I'm just so skeptical of like describing it as a Bollywood masala flick, but because it turns out often, like when you're just taking masala flicks and adapting them, they don't really turn out to be that way. And as for, I know a couple of people have said this about how it sounded very quintessentially Delhi, and the truth is, to be honest, obviously a lot of it was about Delhi, but I think it can happen everywhere, to the extent that I think these kind of people exist here in Bombay also, and I'm pretty sure they exist everywhere else in the, at least in India. I can very reasonably be saying that. I think Rajni is back home and she wants to talk, so we can have her.
Hi guys, hi everyone. And yes, I've reached home. So yeah, so I think about the characters, I think where I left off was my favorite character was ACP Bhavani. And I think somebody mentioned that how he was cool-headed, and I think that's the best thing I liked about him. He was original guy, like the original sort of, he's not putting on a show of being this ACP and stuff. He's like a very genuine, sort of a cool-headed fellow, and who's very smart. And I recently heard in one of Anuja's interviews that she's writing another one with ACP Bhavani, by the way, guys, if you guys don't know. So yeah, there's another ACP Bhavani coming up. And also the film rights are already purchased by Maddox Films. So this is, yeah, this is becoming, this again, I hope it's a good movie. So yes, I think to sum up my feedback about the book, it was my first ever mystery. I read a lot of books, I've never read mystery, so no idea about that Bambi Todi was the person. And so it was a lot of fun for me, and I think now I'm going to start with Agatha Christie. Okay, I know I'm too old to start, but yeah, all the recommendations are welcome. But I really enjoyed this book, and I felt it was in the entire snobbery of tough books, I think it was a very simple, accessible, like flip the pages, and like I think it was a great escape, and I really enjoyed it.
So just to like take forward just a very small point, I think Maddox Films generally makes good films. I know it has nothing to do with books, but yeah, so I'm quite happy. I was happy when the announcement had come out. But yeah, I think one of the oddest parts about or the best part about the book is possibly how I think all of us have been constantly talking about how relatable her characters are and how relatable her work is. And I think it takes some, and and at the same time, how simple and accessible the work is. I think it takes an author of some really great caliber that to write something that's so relatable across like this vast geography that we live in, right? I mean, or for that matter, the other possible thought could be is just that all of us largely belong to one broader Indian middle class and above kind of category in terms of where we're placed. and that kind of makes it a very specific kind of commentary which appeals to these kind of people. That might be a issue, but then at the same time, it is a very wide class, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
even that is like, for a writer, it's commendable to be coming up with something as hard hitting and appealing.
Especially
And
a,
like,
yeah, especially a rom-com writer, Siddharth. I mean, as you just mentioned, she delved into a whole new path. I think it is pretty good. I mean, that way, you know.
yeah, it was a reasonably good, like, so I mean, I've read a few mystery books. I've never read, like, I'm like you, I don't read a lot of mystery,
Yeah.
but I have read a few. It was not obviously the best mystery book that I've read, but it wasn't a bad one. Like, I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah,
really rate it as well. Yeah,
there were loose ends. Huh? There are certain loopholes that I could find out, you know.
yeah.
Starting with the day of Kashi's return. I still remember Tuesday and Thursday, and they were like, you just messed it up 5 pages back. So there were certain those errors here and there, but yeah, largely I couldn't understand that you know, Bambi was. So I think it was a decent read for me. I enjoyed it.
Right. Okay. I think with this we can wrap up, unless anyone else has any other points to add on. We can have a few more this thing, or we could end today's meeting on that note. I don't think anyone else has
Yeah,
anything more to
I
add.
think that sounds good.
Right. So, thank you for joining in. We'll be reaching out to you soon with the details of the next meeting and the next book. If you have any suggestions, please feel free to like email it to us. We'll probably be sending it to you by tomorrow or day after. We have a couple of books shortlisted, but if you have any interesting suggestions, I think someone recommended something by Sally Rooney. If we can pick that up, that was something that we were considering. But yeah, we still have a lot of those other things. We had sent out a poll last time around, and this was the time which most people suggested having. That is like 7 to 8:30. Yeah. So if you have any other suggestions how to like improve these meetings, have more conversations, please do write to us. And yeah, until next time, bye bye. Have fun.